to get us through. We can remember who we are, we can remember why we gather on Sunday mornings, and we can draw strength and courage from being who we are, Unitarian Universalists, Unitarian Universalist Texans, a community of compassion and justice. Yesterday was All Souls, and the day before that was All Saints. So we're not only grounding ourselves in place, we're grounding ourselves in all the people who have come before us, the great cloud of witnesses. And so today we will also remember some of our beloveds who have passed through the portal of death, and we will connect to the histories we have inherited. And we will regather again on Wednesday to take some time together, whatever that might need to be. And we will gather on Sunday, and I have no idea what I'm going to talk about next Sunday. We'll find out when we get there. And we'll figure out what moving forward looks like together. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you came to this place today in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, whether you're joining us here in person or online, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, know that you are welcome here. If this is your first time, if this is your 500th time, you are welcome here. We are glad that you are here, and we are glad to see each other and to be here together. Come into this circle of care and community. Come into this place of connection and interwoven lives. Come in and know that whatever comes, we will face it together, as we have always done. For decades in this place, for centuries in this faith, and for millennia as human beings, in all our communities across space and time. Come in and bring all that you are becoming, so that we may create this sacred moment together and bless this space, making it holy with our presence. Come in and let us worship together.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Maddie Raymond. I'll be serving as your worship associate today. Lillian Bell will light our chalice for us this morning. Thank you, Lillian. Our chalice is a reminder that in hard times, our ancestors in faith acted in courage to bring hope and safety, to bring life itself to threatened people. We light it today as a reminder of who we are called to be in a world still dangerous and still despairing. With courage and faith, we bring ourselves to the work that stands before us. Our opening song is number 323, Break Not the Circle. We covenant with one another and do bind ourselves together in the presence of this religious community to express our deepest and most cherished convictions as they are born by each person to find a common vision for a better world, to seek the life of the Spirit. It is known by each person, choosing with reverence its name, and to walk together in the way of truth and of love, as it is shown to us and to all people in word and deed. Please, will you affirm our covenant with me? Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is a sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship. Thus do we covenant with one another. Thank you.
Our responsive reading is number 646 in the gray hymnal. It is number 646, and it is from Wendell Berry. Please join in with me on the italicized text. We clasp the hands of those that go before us and the hands of those who come after us. We enter the little circle of each other's arms and the larger circle of lovers whose hands are joined in a dance, and the larger circle of all creatures, passing in and out of life, who move also in a dance, to a music so subtle and vast that no ear hears it, except in fragments.
The last time I sang this song, I pleaded for everyone to go vote. Well, early voting is over, so Tuesday is your last chance. From the musical Ragtime, the song is Make Them Hear You. Go out and tell your story, to let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. How justice was our battle, and how justice was denied. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And say to those who blame us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles that are more than black or white. And I could not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Go out and tell the story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. And tell them in our struggle we were not the only ones. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Your sword can be a sermon or the power of the pen. Teach every child to raise his voice, and then, my brothers, then will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men. Make them hear you. When they hear you, I'll be near you again.
Good morning. My name is Gloria Miller, and I am the Religious Education Director here at Bay Area Unitarian Universalist Church, and my pronouns are she, her. Our time for all ages today is a Unitarian Universalist story. Speaking Out, Maria Cook, Universalist preacher. In 1779, more than 200 years ago, a girl named Maria Cook was born in New York State. And when she was born, the Americans were fighting the British in the War for Independence. The Americans wanted to have their own country where they could be independent and free to make their own decisions and say what they thought. When Maria was 4, the Americans won the war. They had their own independent country, and they were free to make their own decisions. And when Maria was 8 years old, Americans decided to have a constitution that promised freedom of religion and freedom of speech. The Constitution promised that, in America, people had the right to choose what to believe in and the right to speak out for what they believed. Maria chose to believe in a religion called Universalism. People called it Universalism because that religion said God loved all people, everyone in the universe, no matter what. And since God loved everyone, eventually everyone would be with God in heaven. Other religions said only a few people went to heaven. The rest went to hell. And not just people who did bad things. In those religions, it didn't matter if people did good things or bad things. In those religions, people who did bad things went to hell, and some people who did good things went to hell too. God chose only a few. Maria didn't believe that. She believed that God chose everyone. She believed God loved everyone in the universe, even if they did bad things. After all, sometimes she did bad things and her mother and father still loved her. God was her parent too, and that's what Maria believed. So she chose to be a Universalist. When Maria was grown up, she decided to speak out for what she believed. She started talking to people about how God loved everyone and everyone would go to heaven. She talked to everyone about Universalism. She talked to people in their houses. She talked to people on the streets. She talked to people in the stores. And then she started talking to people in church, not just after church or before church, but during church. She actually went up to the pulpit where preachers go and started talking about Universalism. And then people started talking about her. Because back then, even though the Constitution promised all people would have freedom of speech, it didn't really work that way. Women weren't supposed to talk in public. Women weren't allowed to vote, which is a very important way of speaking out for what you believe in. Women were not allowed to give speeches and run for office, so no one could vote for them. And they certainly weren't supposed to be preachers. Some people thought it said so in the Bible. But Maria preached anyway. She spoke out for what she believed in. She traveled from town to town preaching about Universalism. And lots of people came to listen, even though she was a woman. She spoke so well that many people started believing in Universalism too. In 1811, a Universalist church gave Maria Cook a letter of fellowship, and today we remember her as the first woman to be a Universalist preacher. Not everyone liked having a woman preaching in their town. They didn't want her there. In 1813, she was arrested. The police said it was because she was a vagrant and didn't have a house to live in, even though she did because she was staying with friends at their house. When the police came, Maria didn't argue and she didn't resist. But she didn't help either. Maria refused to walk. The police had to pick her up, carry her to a wagon, and they drove the wagon to Cooperstown. And then they had to carry her out of the wagon to go see the judge. Maria knew she hadn't done anything wrong. In the courtroom, she spoke out and told the judge that. She told him she didn't recognize his authority. She did not think he had a right to be the judge of her. She refused to answer his questions. And for that, he put her in jail. Maria wouldn't walk there either. The police had to pick her up and carry her to jail. And once she was there, guess what she started to do? She talked to people in the jail. She talked to the police. She talked to the prisoners. She talked to everyone she met about Universalism. She just kept right on preaching. After a few weeks, the judge let her go, and Maria continued traveling to different towns preaching about Universalism. All her life, Maria spoke out for what she believed in and did what she thought was right. She didn't yell, she didn't push or hit, she spoke out. The Universalist religion Maria Cook talked about is part of our own heritage and part of our religion's name, Unitarian Universalism. Like Maria Cook, we believe every person should stand up and speak out for what they think is right and true. We believe everyone should have a say about matters that concern them, and no one should be put in jail for speaking out.
Charlie is our keeper of the flame today.
In the Western Christian tradition, there is a 3-day period from Halloween, or All Saints' Eve, to All Saints' Day, to All Souls' Day. And some traditions celebrate all three. Some of them do a Remembrance Sunday on the closest Sunday in the mix. But it's a whole holy season, pulling together various facets of remembrance. And here we've done a full week of remembrance, from some Dia de los Muertos celebrations last week to our Samhain supper on Wednesday to today. And these have been different ways of remembering, of joining in that holy season for one Hallowtide or Hallowmass. And this has been a year of losses in our community. And I don't know what other years in our history have been like, but this one has felt heavy for me, and I think for many of you. Founders, longtime members, poets and dreamers and activists and friends, companions on our journeys. At this time, I will read the names of the church members who have died since All Souls of last year, ringing the bell once for each name. Mary Carlisle, Joe Painter, Charlie Gibson, Elaine Paracchio, Walt Bobo, Bridget Testa, Johnny Peden, and Louise Peck. In a moment, we will light our red candle of community, our candle for memory and hope, and we light it to hold all of these names, but also names from years past, names from those who were not members, but who were nevertheless part of our community. We light it for our own personal losses in our lives, and for all the other griefs and sorrows in our community, And so for all those people named and unnamed, let us hold a moment of silence. May their memories be a blessing to us and to all who knew them. We light too this morning the white candle for peace, and we light it for the apocalypse that is Gaza and the devastation of Lebanon, and we light it for Ukraine, and we light it for Myanmar, Sudan, the Maghreb. We light it for the lives lost to gun violence. We light it for the election workers that have already seen and may yet see violence. But we also light it in hope for a world in which all might live without fear. We light it to remind ourselves to seek out ways to build that world, to build it here in our own small corner, but also to build it across the globe. Whatever you have brought in the door with you this week, be it joy or sorrow, worry or hope or dream or milestone celebration, whatever it is, we would like to help you hold it, to bear witness to it. I invite you to come forward and light candles of your own for your own hopes and dreams, to light candles for your friends and loved ones, and to light your own candles for the world. And remember that whatever you bring with you, you are not alone. We are with you in it. If you would like a candle brought to you, please raise your hand. For all these little lights, the lights of our hopes and our dreams and our worries too, for all of these, will you please join with me in prayer? Infinite mystery, holy heartbeat at the core of all things, awaken us to your presence. We seek you in the comfort and joy of our gathering together. We sense you in the pauses and the silences that reveal our own heartbeats. We sense you in our breathing, in our embodiment. Help us to find stable ground this day and in the days ahead. Remind us that the earth beneath us holds us and sustains us all. Help us to find in that stable earth, in that grounding, our taproot, our source of strength and courage and resilience. Remind us that we are part of this woven web of the world and that our isolation is an illusion. Remind us that we are part of something greater, builders of new worlds, every day and with every action. Remind us, if we have forgotten, that we do have power and strength, that our solidarity in spirit can heal our own spirits, can heal our loved ones, heal this world. Spirit of life and love, be with us this week as we dream of justice and transformation. Keep our hearts and minds open to new possibilities, even or perhaps especially amid the chaos. Keep our hearts and minds open to love, even amid fear and looming uncertainty. May we relearn, if we have forgotten, that we are powerful. And may we be agents of love and justice, making spirit real in our communities and in our own lives. Amen, and may it be so. Our prayer in song this morning, please remain seated, but join us in number 352, Find a Stillness.
Our reading this morning is entitled Revolutionary Love and is by Dana Edwards. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my faith. My faith that our collective love, united, can drown out the evils of empire and greed. Together, we create a love energy more powerful than any force of oppression. Because when two or more people are gathered side by side, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, the force of love ignites liberation. Revolutionary love calls us to know ourselves deeply, see God in strangers, find beauty in the imperfect. Revolutionary love calls us to find the divine in dirt, the holy in the heartache, and the sacred in the scars. Revolutionary love calls us out and then back in. Revolutionary love calls us to be better and to do better. Revolutionary love calls us to heal and hold each other, because none of us would be here if it weren't for our faith in each other. Thank you.
Grab my water. Well, I like to have it over there during most of the service, but then sometimes I need to have it here, so I need to remember to bring it up here. So yesterday, this is not part of my sermon, this is just me telling a story, but yesterday I went to Reverend Ed Prue's installation at Emerson UU Church in the Galleria area, and he had asked his friend, Reverend Nathan Ryan, who's from our church in Baton Rouge, to preach on the future of UUism and a hopeful trajectory. And Reverend Nathan said, "Really? Today? You want me to do this today?" And so in the spirit of the affirmation I received, that we're all kind of in the mud right now, I'm going to say that this is one of those sermons I feel like I'm in the mud and I'm digging around, and hopefully the process has offered some measure of wisdom, because I feel like I got that from Reverend Nathan, and hopefully I can offer that to you. And I don't know what I could say today that would be something you don't already know. I'm looking out at a crowd of pretty active political folks who I know most of you have probably already voted early or made your plan for Tuesday. I know this about you. I have also voted early. And right now, at this precise moment, that might not feel like enough, because I know that our democratic institutions are looking awfully fragile. And maybe some of this is my own anxiety and trauma. My very first presidential election was 2000. An election decided by judicial processes more than by the people. And so I might have some feelings coming up around our institutions. And the horror of January 6th for me was less about the incident itself and more in remembering how fragile our norms are, our assumptions that things are just gonna truck along smoothly. That was the thing that felt so awful, that it could have so easily been different, that a single day could have turned into weeks or months of violence. And we live under a system in which our elections are not simple one-off majority rules votes. It's a more complex nexus of representative structures at the best of times. And on top of that, right now at this moment, there are additional layers of voter suppression, distrust of media, the spread of disinformation on all parts of the political spectrum. And all parts of the spectrum are disenchanted with the process, and there's a general sense in the air that something feels broken. And yet, here we are, voting once again and trusting once again that it will mean something, because this is what we do. We fumble our way a little bit towards democracy, and we stagger, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and we keep going. This is what we do as Americans. This is a nation that began as a colony under monarchy, and that early nation, fought for the freedom of certain kinds of people to claim space in the body politic, wrenching it open eventually to white male suffrage, and then universal male suffrage, and then actual universal suffrage, except not really, just kind of sort of most of the time, but inch by inch, wrenching by wrenching, this is a country that has fumbled its way painfully forward. We pass laws and later try to make them real, and then we pass more laws, and again, folks try to make those real too, inch by painful inch. The work is not yet done, and it matters that the work isn't done. Just this week, I saw a Christian nationalist pastor advocating for a return to only allowing married white men with children and property to vote. And I presume if I gave that guy other categories, he would have included those too, but he probably doesn't acknowledge those categories most of the time. And no matter what happens on Tuesday, the fact remains that there is that element, that thread woven through our country, embedded in our political life, attempting to roll back every gain, and no one single election is going to fix that. Even now, we're fighting for the gains of the past and simultaneously engaged in the struggle to continue widening the circle of democracy. And I think as a nation, we will always be engaged in that struggle, working to make democracy real, to turn the dream into a lived reality. This faith tradition is woven into American history at every step. From the Universalists to the Unitarians, we're talking about people who were deep in the weeds of all of these conversations at every stage of the journey. Gloria told us a little bit about Maria Cook today, and I thought long and hard about including one of my favorite really obscure preachers, Charles Chauncey, who was at the time called the Preacher of the Revolution, because he stood around in Boston and preached all these amazing sermons from First Church about democracy and the things that the nation was going to accomplish. And this is our heritage. We trace our Unitarian heritage back to the Puritan settlers who became people like Reverend Chauncey. And for all of their many, many and multitude failings in our modern eyes, there is one part of their project that I think we need to hold on to. Because they believed that each of us had a personal relationship with God and that no one stands between the individual and God, each individual had a story of personal encounter, kind of like a modern born-again narrative. And the community would affirm that relationship, bring that individual into the community, and here it is. That individual now has actual power and a say in what that community does. And it hadn't worked that way in churches for most of Christian history. And so the American narrative of exclusion, but then breaking apart that exclusion to stretch to include more, the struggle to actually live out the ramifications of an individual voice having value, those stories were also playing out in our congregations. In the story of Maria Cook and in the story of other Unitarian men and women, and the stories of people of color who strove to be a part of Unitarianism that wasn't really sure that it wanted them. But none of that would have been possible. None of these attempts to bring the circle wider without that first crack in the edifice. This idea that each of us has our own story and the right to speak it. And it took centuries for these cracks to really tear down the edifice of hierarchy, and we aren't there yet. But that first crack really matters. The Universalist journey is pretty similar to the Unitarian one. The Unitarians were working with the idea that all people are made in the image of God, and the Universalists are working with the idea that all people are loved by God, and it comes out the same in the end. The idea that we have real worth and real value. And also, for the Universalists, what they called soul liberty. That it is in our own souls that we are free and that our relationship with the holy is made. And they also needed to be broken apart and rebuilt to make space for those who were not white, cisgender men. But people claimed that space, they demanded it, and the boundaries were pulled wider again and again. This individualism in us, combined with our love of community and covenant, this is a tension that we live in. But that anti-authoritarian impulse leads us inevitably to democracy as a matter of faith. Because for all that individualism and resistance to authority, we are also in relationship with one another. We're embedded in a community, in this community, and the broader community. A whole lot of our struggle as a nation and as a faith movement has been how to actually live in that tension. How many times have we failed? So many, we know this. But how many times have we dusted ourselves off, put together some motions, some petitions, some kind of legislation, organized, marched, voted our way into something better? Surprisingly often. And then we look back and we remember the iconoclasts, the people who were rebels in their time, arrested, perhaps despised people, perhaps we ourselves historically denied, and we bring them back in. And we say, oh, it looks like they were part of us all along, because they were. And we remake ourselves into who we should have been then. For Unitarian Universalists, I think this is our transformation. This is our form of conversion, our commitment to a community of democracy that changes and grows and transforms. This is a time of ambiguity and anxiety. This election itself offers two very different visions of who we are as a country and a people. And these are wildly different agendas and goals, and the two visions are so incompatible that it can seem inconceivable that there is a constructive path forward. And moreover, I think many of us are sitting with the anxiety that even if there's a clear answer in the electorate, that may or may not translate through our creaky election machinery. And then there are possibilities of other interventions or of social upheaval, and so there is a lot of possibility of heartbreak. But there's also a lot of possibility of transformation. We just don't know yet. It really could go either way. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm going to say next week. There's a description in the worship calendar, but I don't really know what I'm going to actually come up here and say. But what I can say is that I am a Unitarian Universalist because I think this is the place where we work it out. This is the place where I feed my spirit when I'm anxious and struggling in the mud of ambiguity. And Unitarian Universalism is the community that I trust to hold me and all of us in these times, because we ourselves believe in democracy, and we believe in each other, and we believe that, yes, we will dust ourselves off, and we will get up, and we will keep doing all of the things that we do to heal our world. For all those possibilities of democratic wobbling I laid out, there really is the possibility that all goes smoothly. Turnout suggests we might actually reflect the will of the people, because people aren't staying home. They are coming out and voting early. People are block walking, people are making phone calls. And it's likely that activity will show up in the results and in the Electoral College and in all the processes along the way, and also, possibly more importantly, down ballot to senators and representatives and judges and city councils. And if that happens, our task will be to remember that the work is not yet done. Because it's just one election, and it's vital, and it's urgent, and it matters. But when it's over, we will still have work to do. No matter what happens, we will still live in a country that does not quite hold all the voices of its people. We will still live in a country that distrusts media and each other, and we will still live in a nation with some irreconcilable differences. And maybe that does not sound terribly optimistic in this moment, and I know that. But I also think there's some inherent hope in remembering that this is just one moment. This is one moment in a long arc of history, and there will be other moments, as there have been other moments in the past. And I think it's important to remember that the national stage is never the real on-the-ground work of politics. It's the capstone project for a subset of politics. But the real work is being done here, in this room, and in the streets outside our doors. And when the stakes feel so very dire, and when it feels like the fabric of democracy is fraying, we need to remember that democracy isn't mended in a presidential election. Democracy is mended here. Our churches are places where we practice democracy. In all of our committees, we are little laboratories of voting and policy, and little laboratories of figuring out inclusivity and widening our circle of community. And we, you and I and everyone in this room, we take those actual real skills out into our neighborhoods. We take them into our wards and our cities and our towns and our schools and our school boards and our libraries. And so when we gaze on this massive institution that is the federal government, and when we look at the turmoil of the nation as a whole, political projects seem wildly out of our power. Because they are. Many pieces of them are. But there are whole swaths of work of governance happening right where we can reach it. And we are obligated to do our work there. And there is where we can feel our power. That is the level at which we can shore up the institutions that participate in that larger whole. It's where we can build better ones. And it's where we can force institutions to serve us better and do whatever we can to ensure that democracy is actually happening and that everyone's voices are actually being heard. So whatever happens this week, I hope all of us, me included, can go in with this piece of resilience and determination, knowing that no matter what happens, there will still be work to do, and that it will be work we can do, and it will be work we are well equipped to do, because we are Unitarian Universalists, and we are a people who love democracy. And we are a people who see democracy as a rising out of love, our love, for those who might use this language, God's love, the love of the universe. And we are people who work to make that love real, every day, every year, election or no election. So my friends, take care of yourselves this week. Find your peace, find your grounding, find your stability, so that we can go forth and do this work with courage and honor to bring forth a little more justice, a little more compassion, and keep inching our painful way towards the beautiful world we do dream about. Amen, and may it be so. Let us take a moment to honor the ancestors of this church, the people who first came together to create a moment for liberal religion here in this place on the south side of Houston, near the waters of the bay and the creeks and the lakes. The people who worked to raise money for this building, the people who sat in all of those Democratic committee meetings and created our democratic bylaws. Also the people who chopped and marinated and baked for potlucks, who painted, who washed dishes, who gathered to worship, to learn, to grieve, to heal, to serve, to build justice, to transform their lives and heal this world. We in this place have received a beautiful gift and vision. And we are now the ancestors of this church, growing our legacy for those who are a part of us but who have not yet quite arrived. Let us do our part to keep this congregation strong, vital, and thriving for the generations to come. The morning offering will now be gratefully received.
Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. We're gonna trouble the water.
Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. We're gonna trouble the water.
See that hope standing in line.
They're gonna trouble the water.
They're gonna vote, it feels so fine.
They're gonna trouble the water.
Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. We're gonna trouble the water.
Looked over yonder and what did I see?
We're gonna trouble the water.
All of us voting to serve humanity.
We're gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. We're gonna trouble the water. We're gonna trouble the water. We're gonna trouble the water.
Beautiful, thank you. Now will you join me as we bless our offering? This gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world. And now for our announcements. Photos of diverse scenes taken by Ron Masters are hanging on the walls of Cockrell Hall. And that goes from now through November 25th. Ron and his wife Patty are members of Thorough UU Church. His photos of diverse scenes were first shown here last April at Fringe Art Fest. Join us this Wednesday night, November 6th, for dinner in Cockrell Hall, followed by a special Vesper service that is seated in the aftermath. On the day after the election, we'll come together to reflect on the outcomes, whatever they may be, and find solace in one another's presence. We'll light a candle, share a few words, and renew your spirit in the warmth of our community. We hope to see you there. On Saturday, November 9th, all youth and young adults are invited to join us for breakfast and a movie. We'll meet at the taco stand at 9:30 a.m. for breakfast, then head to Webster Cinemark to watch Venom around 10:45 a.m. This event is open to fifth graders and up, and young adults are especially encouraged to attend. Parents are welcome to join, but it's not required. We look forward to a fun-filled morning with you. Also, on November 9th, Darcy Truhan will be hosting a British-American tea party. This is a tradition that was started back in the early years of this location by Nancy Stout, and the cost is $20, which can be paid at the door. Scones, savory treats, and sweets will be served. Come wearing your best hat and be prepared for a fun time. Please RSVP using the sign-up sheet outside Cockrell Hall by Thursday, November 7th. Next Sunday after the service, families, parents, and children, bring your appetite and a dish to share for a delightful family potluck lunch. Join us at 12:30 p.m. in Cockrell Hall for a fun-filled gathering. While the children play and are cared for, parents can engage in meaningful discussions about parenting topics. Don't miss out on this perfect blend of food, fun, and parenting insights. After today's service, join us for a special lunch and learn. We're excited to welcome Americans United for Separation of Church and State, who will lead an engaging and informative discussion about how Texas's abortion laws impact religious freedom. This is a great opportunity to understand the dangers of Christian nationalism and explore ways to advocate for the separation of church and state. Enjoy a delicious lunch, connect with others, and dive into this really important conversation. We hope to see you there. If you're a visitor or new to BAUUC, you're invited to bring your questions about our church and faith to coffee with Reverend Katie at 12:15 every fourth Sunday. Reverend Katie will set aside time every fourth Sunday each month. Enjoy snacks and conversation as you explore whether BAUUC is a fit for you and your family. Your family is invited. And finally, here at BAUUC, we understand the importance of staying connected with our community. That's why we offer a weekly newsletter every Tuesday with the latest news and events that are happening here at our church. Don't miss out on the opportunity to engage in meaningful activities and connect with fellow members. Sign up for our email list today using the QR code that's shown on the screen or by going to BAUUC.org and join our community of spiritual growth, fellowship, and fun. Our closing song today is number 318, We Would Be One. You can stand.
That hymn was written in the 50s by a Unitarian young adult. I think he was a Unitarian because this was pre-merger. And he wrote it because they were actually merging their youth groups. The national Unitarian and Universalist movements merged youth groups well before the adults were ready for that. And so those young adults were engaged in democratic work and leading their elders. I offer a chalice extinguishing from Leah Derlin Jones. For those who came before us, we offer gratitude and thanks. May their memories be a blessing, and may we feel surrounded by their love as we go forth from this time and place. Let us be inspired by their courage, their wisdom, and their dreams. Let us honor them by doing the work of living boldly, loving mightily, and creating heaven on earth. Amen, and blessed be. Go in peace.
Thank you.